Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So we continue from where we left in our previous class. And just to recapitulate, we know the background of this second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The first chapter, which deals with some kind of depression and fear that Arjuna is suffering from, some kind of depression. Such a brave general, a warrior with proven capabilities, he had absolutely, there was no doubt in his mind before the beginning of the war that he will be winning this war. He had come prepared for that. And all of a sudden we saw how he had strange comments to make just before the war. When he asked Sri Krishna to take his chariot in the midst of that, between the two armies which were facing each other, he suddenly sees his friends, his relatives, his cousins, in fact, who had assembled, and suddenly the thought came to him, a sort of uncertainty came to him. And that was the result of his vishada or depression or some kind of fear which came to him. Now this is what happens in our life. Whenever there is uncertainty, whenever and wherever there is uncertainty in our life, we panic, we become anxious, we become fearful. The reason being that we anticipate, means that uncertainty forces us to anticipate certain things which may or may not happen. In fact, they may not happen. But it's just the mere thought, that uncertainty which occupies our mind, results in some kind of negative feelings, especially anxiety, worry, because we want certainty in life. Everyone wants some kind of stability in life, to be at peace with himself and with the world. So it is uncertainty that makes us commit a lot of mistakes, take wrong decisions, make wrong choices in life, because we are not in the right frame of mind to make the right choices. We saw this in the second chapter, where Sri Krishna tells him about the state of mind which in Bhagavad Gita is known as buddhi. It is a higher state of mind. So in India, in Indian philosophy, or you may say in the eternal philosophy of Sanatana Dharma, which is this Bhagavad Gita is a manual. In this, in Indian philosophy in general, the mind is broadly divided into two parts. One is a lower mind and there is a higher mind. The function of the lower mind is to react to external stimuli. We receive a lot of inputs from the world outside us, and each of us reacts in a different way. The people who are highly reactive are not appreciated, because if we are highly reactive, then we don't have that kind of stability in our life. It has ups and downs. We react to everything that is happening around us. But normally mature people, they are not so highly reactive. There is a reason for this. Their reactive mind is under their control. that is what Indian philosophy or Indian psychology of yoga tells us, that you have to control the lower mind by a higher faculty of our own mind. It's not that it's a totally different faculty. It's a part of our mind which has to be developed, which is known as buddhi. So Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna, now your lower mind is active, which is known as manas. There is a technical name for that. So that manas just knows how to react. All the emotions associated with the lower creatures, as animals, they are totally instinctive in nature. So if there is something outside of them threatens their life, so mere survival instinct makes them panicky, makes them react, whether it is the fear of death or fear of attack from others. So they just panic at every situation, and they are highly alert, no doubt. They are very sensitive. They also have some kind of undeveloped mind. And with that mind, with that reactive mind, which is a lower state of mind, they try to take care of the situation. They are highly reactive in nature. But human beings have a capacity which they should develop through spiritual practices, through practice of religion. They are expected to develop a higher faculty which enables them not to react immediately. Otherwise, there is hardly any difference between us and the other animals. The higher a man, higher a human being, higher his mind, according to Indian philosophy, we say his buddhi has been developed. That is exactly what is that's the theme of the second chapter, where Sri Krishna is now going to tell Arjuna the state of mind of a person who has his buddhi awakened. Buddhi is nothing but wisdom. It's the choice-making capacity which has to be developed in a young child, provided he has parents who have developed this quality of buddhi themselves, because they inherit many things from their parents, their teachers, their surroundings. So if the right kind of nurture is there, then there is a chance that the child grows up with this choice-making capacity. To put it in simple English, it is known as choice-making capacity. You may ask, what is so big? Everyone makes choices in life. Yes, everyone does everyone has the capacity to make choices, but very often it's not the wrong choice. Every moment, in fact, why every day, every moment we are asked to make choices in life. And depending on how many right choices we make, our life becomes either happy, peaceful, or full of misery, and it may lead to depression if you have made a wrong choice. So this choice making is a faculty which has to be cultivated, and that is the essence of this second chapter, where Sri Krishna says there is another faculty, you are now just reacting in a very immature way. You are afraid of the uncertainty, because Sri Krishna, Arjuna is telling Sri Krishna that, oh, I didn't expect this. Now, he was so much fearful of the consequences of this war. He should have thought it earlier. Now, in the midst of the battlefield, he suddenly panics, and that's not going to help him. So Arjuna is, scolded by Sri Krishna in the first chapter. You see, he just admonishes him. He said, you are acting like a coward. And all of a sudden, whereas this fear of death come to you, you know this soul is immortal. You have been trained, and not only that, even from a worldly point of view, you are strong, you have prepared for this war, and it does not suit you to run away from the battle. So that is exactly this message of the Gita for most of us, is to face the consequences of our choices, right or wrong. It would be better if we make the right choice every time we are asked to make a choice. Then the problems won't arise, the problems won't be there. But unfortunately, we make the wrong choices and end up repenting that we should have done that, we should have chosen to do this. And in the spur of the moment, we just react. So our reactive mind, which is known as manas, as compared to the buddhi, which is a higher faculty of the mind, is more active when there is when there is less development of our mind, we depend on our reactive capacity, we depend on our manas, and we just take decisions based on the inputs that we get without using buddhi or wisdom, which enables us to pause for a moment and decide, take a decision and choose to act only after proper deliberation or thinking. So that is the essence of this second chapter, which is also known as Sankhya Yoga. So this is what we discussed till now. And Sri Krishna is giving him some kind of tip from 38, verse number 38. So in the beginning till verse number 37, Sri Krishna is giving him all sorts of arguments. From the spiritual point of view, that anyway the soul, according to Hindu philosophy, is eternal. So that which dies is the body, not the soul. But perhaps he thinks that argument is too philosophical for Arjuna. So he gives him some practical tips also. He says, if you run away from battle, just think of the criticism that you will face from society. People will say Arjuna was a coward. Though he was so strong, he was afraid of a battle and he ran away from the battle. Yes, you will be known as an escapist. When he knew that philosophy will not work, he also tried other means in the second chapter, trying to convince him that think of the situation. Here at the most you will die fighting a battle, but at least you will be a hero. If you die fighting this battle, you will be called a hero. If you win, you will enjoy the kingdom for which you both Kauravas and Pandavas have decided to fight it out. But if you run away from battle, definitely you will get nothing but criticism from the people. Society will always say that Arjuna escaped. So he is trying all sorts of psychological tricks till verse 37 to convince him that either way there is no other way than to face the challenge which is in front of him. So in a way Sri Krishna is trying to tell us that whenever we are in such a situation, we just cannot escape. We have to face the brutes, face the situation. So there is a nice incident in the life of Vivekananda when he was visiting a temple in Banaras, Varanasi, a Durga temple, and in those days there was a very narrow path. On the one side there was this pond, and you had to pass through that, and the monkeys, the ferocious monkeys, huge large sized monkeys, they are very notorious. They knew that our devotees will be taking a lot of fruits for offering. So they would just perch on the wall nearby and just pounce on those people and grab whatever fruit offerings are there. And they were so ferocious, huge monkeys, and they would come in hordes. So Swami Vivekananda was passing by, though he had no fruit in his hand. He was just passing by. These monkeys decided to attack him. And there was an old monk who was walking a little away. And seeing this ferocious monkey, Swami Vivekananda was taken aback. He was just thinking of how to escape now. It's such a narrow road. You have to jump in the pond or run. So he decided to run. just to save his life. That's instinctive. That's instinctive. Anyone will run if you see those ferocious monkeys. So Vivekananda did that, but then when he was running away, this old monk shouted from a distance. He said, "Face the brutes." So what he meant was, if you run away, they'll chase you. But when he turned and faced the brutes, took them head on, and just stared at them, suddenly those ferocious monkeys stopped. And then, of course, he had a stick in his hand, but still, maybe the mere act of facing these brutes made them slowly withdraw and go away. So Swami Vivekananda in California, when he gave a talk, he said, this is exactly the lesson which I learned, that in life when troubles come, if we face them, we have to face it, then they go away from us. But if we panic and run away and have a tendency to run away from these troubles, then they will chase you. So this old monk who knew the nature of these monkeys rightly advised me that face the brute. That's what he said. Samna karo. That is, face the brute. So this is what Arjuna is being asked by Sri Krishna to do. He's saying, if you at this stage, if you run away from battle, the whole world will criticize you, they'll make fun of you. It's like inviting infame. You'll become infamous as a warrior, a kshatriya who has run away from the battle. So it does not befit you. You stand up and you fight. But then, from verse number 38 to 41, which are very important, then there are 72 verses in this second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He is now trying to explain how can you achieve this wisdom, how can you develop your buddhi. The work which you are doing as a compulsion in our day-to-day life, we do many things as a big burden, or it's like a big headache. It's like a drudgery. So that is what Sri Krishna thought. Arjuna now thinks, now where have I have come to this battlefield, what a big headache now. I have to fight and maybe kill some of my cousins, some of my relatives. So now suddenly some kind of panic is coming to his mind and he doesn't know how to act. So similarly, for people who think that the work that they are doing is forced upon them, if they know how to work, which is also known as karma yoga, how to transform karma. Karma means work. Anything that we do, we breathe, we talk, anything that we do is karma. It's not karma yoga, but there is a technique by doing which this karma can be transformed into karma yoga, and that will lead to wisdom. That will lead to yoga. Yoga, whether you use karma yoga, bhakti yoga, that is devotion to the Lord, all these yogas have one goal in mind, to remove uncertainty and establish you in certainty, that is in the one reality that does not change, whether you call it by the name of God or Brahman or the Father in heaven or any other name you call him. That which is eternal, that which does not change, that which is certain. There is an element of certainty about God, God's will, about truth, which does not change with changing times and changing situations. That is exactly what religion is. Whatever be our concept of God, whether we believe in a God with form or without form, we ascribe to that reality an element of certainty, and that certainty gives us peace. You see, it's a very simple psychological truth that the more our minds are uncertain about our things, about our future, about anything, any simple matter in life, uncertainty brings about anxiety, results in restlessness of the mind, and obviously you lose your peace of mind. So, the simplest way, according to Bhagavad Gita, is to transform karma yoga in such a way that the work that you do helps you to develop this certainty which comes by the awakening of the buddhi, the higher mind. Right now we are being controlled, or we are dictated by our lower mind, which is manas. And as long as that faculty is being used by us predominantly, it will lead to uncertainty, more and more uncertainty. The more restless our mind, the more uncertain. You might have seen some people develop some kind of hyperactivity disorder. It's not, it's because the mind is so restless, it's incapable of focusing on a particular thing. No matter how much you try to tell him or her, it's not just a disease, it's because we have trained the mind in the wrong way. So it's not just a medical condition, but it's something which makes our mind restless, our bad habits, our dealing with the lower mind or focusing on the manas rather than buddhi, and not developing our faculty of making the right choices and enabling us to lead a happy life. So that faculty, how to awaken that faculty? There are many ways. You can do it through meditation. That is one of the way. Dhyana yoga. Will come to the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Dhyana yoga. So there are, in fact, if you see, 18 yogas, including the first chapter, which is known as Vishada yoga, which is the yoga of depression. You might think, what is there? What kind of yoga is that? We call it Vishada. Yes, sometimes setbacks are necessary for us to take our spiritual life seriously, to take our mind seriously, take care of the cultivation of the mind seriously. We come to religion, we come to spirituality only because we have trouble. If everything was going on smoothly, there was no anxiety, no problem in our life, then we perhaps would not be motivated or maybe forced to go to God. We would turn to God when we know that it is humanly impossible for us to solve our problems. So we go to any God whom we believe in, whom our tradition or our religion tells us to believe, but it's a belief. It's a belief out of faith, not out of reasoning. Why should we pray to God? What do we gain when we pray to God, when we pray to the Almighty? Will we get that certainty, that stability, that peace, if we perform worship or perform yoga in a particular way? In Hinduism, the path is known as yoga. Whether you worship God with form, which is bhakti yoga, through prarthana, through prayers, through japa, through meditation. But through meditation, it is Raj Yoga or Patanjali's yoga. So there are many pathways. So here Karma Yoga is spoken of because right now Sri Krishna is facing this problem of how to make Arjuna fight and fight with a stable mind. He is totally agitated, totally confused, and that may result in not performing his swadharma, that is his chosen duty as a kshatriya, as a warrior. He is supposed to fight. He has been told that this is your swadharma, there is no other way. For a kshatriya, for a warrior, his swadharma is to defend the country, to fight. It may not be the same duty. A teacher is not expected to take up arms and fight. His duty is to do education, or to teach, to deal with education. So his swadharma is different. Your swadharma, you can't just now say that I will withdraw from the battle and take up some other profession. You can't do it. Whatever you choose out of your own swadharma, you have to stick to it through good and bad times. You cannot change. That is the message of the 2nd chapter. that you just stick to your Swadharma. You have to do it, but do it in such a way that it becomes yoga. Karma becomes karma yoga. That's the idea. So how to transform it? The verse number 38 to 41 teaches us that. So we'll take the verse number 38 now of the second chapter. Sukha dukhe same krutva labha labhau jaya jayo tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papam avapsyasi. Sukhe dukhe, in pleasure and in pain, in sukha or in dukkha, in pleasure or in pain, maintain a kind of sameness. Try not to be unnecessarily disturbed. On some days you will be happy, and some days you will be in pain. But that's part and parcel of life. Try to maintain some kind of equanimity. That's why it says, Sukhe dukhe same kritva. This is how you perform karma yoga. If you are disturbed or perturbed because you face some challenges in life, as you are doing now, and you want to escape from the challenges, you have to accept. If you have accepted a particular swadharma, you have to do it whether you find pleasure in doing it or whether it is painful. Whether if it is painful also, you have to do it, you cannot escape. That's when you develop equanimity in your mind. So, sukha dukhe same krutva, considering them as the same and not being biased. Labha labho jaya jayo. Labha means gain. You may gain. In some cases you may gain something. In some cases you may lose. So whether there is a gain and loss, that's part and parcel of life. Whenever you do some kind of business or some kind of endeavor, every time it may not be successful. There are some good times, there are some bad times. So you don't have to bother, try to consider both gain and loss, victory and defeat. If you do that, then the karma that you are doing is not based on the fruits that accrue. Your action, you have a right to act, but the results very often may not be according to your wish. So if you do that, not bother about the consequences, and go on doing your swadharma duty, then you will not incur any sin, whatever may be the action that you are doing. So this is a technique Sri Krishna is advising Arjuna to follow. This is the path of karma yoga. So he says, the verse number 38 to 41 is dealing with the path of karma. After having convinced him that he has to act, he cannot run away from the battle, he has to do his swadharma, he is trying to tell him. But at the same time, remember, you have to do it in a particular way for the work that you are doing to qualify as karma yoga, which will ultimately lead you to peace. He says, it will not only lead you to the ultimate goal of life, but also you will incur no sin. He was afraid. He was giving, one of the arguments in the first chapter was, by killing so many people, will I not commit sin? War was not his choice. He was forced into war. They tried, Krishna and Arjuna, all of them tried their best to reconcile and said that we don't deserve this kind of treatment. We have fulfilled all the conditions. Just give us 5 villages, which we deserve. At least 5 villages to rule. May not be half the kingdom, but at least a few villages. Even that was denied. Duryodhana was so arrogant. He said, I will not give you an inch of land. Now his honor, their honor was at stake. According to Swadharma, the Kshatriyas have to fight. And that is what Sri Krishna is telling him. You have to fight, there is no other way. So after having encouraged him to fight, he says, but if you want to realize the highest, reach that level of certainty which comes by aligning yourself to reality, God, truth, Brahman, or whatever concept of reality you have. If you want that certainty and peace, and if you want to reach the goal and get rid of uncertainty which is leading to all these issues and problems and troubles in life, you have to practice this karma yoga. So people who work with the various motives, they are very keen to win every time they play, which is not possible. Even in sports, you can't expect to win all the time. There will be good times, there will be bad times. If you do that, he says, that self-culture which enables you to see the happenings, the things that happen around you, whether you are involved in it or not, with a detached mind, that will lead to some kind of certainty, some kind of stability of your mind. The buddhi will be awakened, you will become wise. Wise means you will become a sthita prajna. We have yet to come to that, the qualities of a sthita prajna. Now Arjuna is more or less, his mind has been studied. His mind has become a little bit steady. At least Sri Krishna was able to remove his lethargy, remove his fear, and ask him to perform action and not run away from the battle and perform swadharma. So after doing that, now Sri Krishna is telling him in these verses that if you work in the proper way, even this swadharma will lead you to the highest goal of life. That is the beauty of Gita. Sri Krishna gives him all the secular arguments why he should fight, he will be criticized by the world if he runs away, and all those things are worldly arguments. But now he is giving him spiritual side of why he should work, how he should work. So, if you are tossed by pain and pleasure, if you are too much attached to victory or too much afraid of loss, then it is motivated work. That will lead to karma, that will lead to sin. So you are afraid of sin, you are afraid of the consequences of the war. What will happen if I kill some people who are dear to me, who unfortunately are on the opposite side? These were the worries he expressed in front of Krishna. So Arjuna is being told, you will not incur any sin if you do work in a detached way. This is one of the yogas which enable us to establish contact with reality and also with uncertainty, also with peace, because of the stability that it gives. Stability in the whether you win or lose, whether you have pain or pleasure. So a man of strong and balanced mind, he will consider both these things to be the same. He will not be affected, and that requires development of the buddhi. As I said, the higher faculty of the mind, which is not the reactive mind. The reactive mind will be very elated when one is successful, and he will be very depressed when he loses the battle or loses the game. So that kind of uncertainty causes misery in our life. So how do we establish certainty? By working, by converting karma into karma yoga, by considering all these dualities and taking them without any, with the mind, strong mind, not taking note of all these results, you will be free from sin. So now we come to the next verse, 39. Now, this is just a continuation of the argument he is giving, or the advice Sri Krishna is giving to convert karma into karma yoga. So he says, Esha te abhihita sankhye buddhir yoge tvimam shrunu buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. Now we come to that word buddhi. I was saying that there are two faculties of mind, broadly speaking. One is the lower mind, which is manas, the reactive mind, which all of us have, which is just a reaction to the different inputs that we get from the sense organs, and we react. Whatever training we have been given since childhood, that leads to a highly skilled reactive mind. There's nothing great about it. It's a trained mind, it knows how to react. But it does not know how to choose. That is known as the discriminative mind, the viveka, the power to make the right choices, spiritual choices, so that you don't become, you perform every karma as karma yoga. So it says, Esha te abhihita, means this to thee. This to thee has been declared by Sankhya. In Sankhya Yoga, that is Sankhya, as well as it is known as Buddhi, Yoga, even in Sankhya and Yoga, both. This is known as Buddhi. So hear about this. Hear with wisdom, Buddhya, with the help of the little Buddhi that you have developed as a result of the training that you have received from your Guru. All of them had to undergo training. Unfortunately, that kind of training is not given now. Between the age of 6 and 8. All these rituals are not just rituals. We are supposed to do Upanayana. That is, a person becomes a Dvija. It's not just for Brahmins alone. Unfortunately, the idea of Dvija, twice born, the spiritual birth, that means the beginning of that phase of life where your buddhi starts growing. And they say the right age is between 6 and 8. And mind you, it's not restricted to boys alone. There's nowhere in the scriptures where they say this Upanayana or Gayatri Mantra is meant to be given only to boys. Why? Girls also can have this. A girl also needs wisdom. Why this exclusive privilege? Because it has been converted into a mere ritual now. You have to do it, that's all. Either at the age of 6, 8, 10, 12, whenever you like you do it. That is the ritual part of it. But the idea behind this Gayatri was a prayer given to a young child, boy or girl, to pray to the Lord, to the light within, to the sun which is symbolic of the light within, to awaken your buddhi, dhiyo yona prachodayata. So that dhi which is required here, he says, that wisdom, that buddhi, listen to me. Now, of course, Arjuna would have had the knowledge of Gayatri. He was supposed to have that with wisdom, which Partha, you have been given or trained. As a student, obviously he had been, would have been aware of the Gayatri Mantra. He said, this buddhi has been given to you, use it. And using this, you can remove the bondage of karma. That's another way of karma yoga. If you do work with buddhi, buddhi means not wisdom, not chalaki or not some kind of, some people they think they are very clever. By cheating others, that cleverness is totally different. That is not buddhi. In common vernacular Indian languages, when you say buddhi means he is very wise, he knows how to cheat, he knows how to manipulate things. That is not buddhi, that is just chalaki. There is another word in Hindi which is known as chalaki, means he is worldly wise, very intelligent. But he is not buddhiman. The word buddhi here means spiritual wisdom, to know what is right, what is wrong. There is a huge difference between buddhi and some kind of cleverness. It's not cleverness, it is dexterity in work. You will see it in the subsequent chapters, how Sri Krishna is telling him, real buddhi is knowing how to convert karma into karma yoga. That is buddhi. Any karma that you do, any kind of cheating that you do with cleverness is not buddhi. It's misuse of your buddhi. Otherwise, people think, oh, he's a very clever person. How? Why? Because he cannot be cheated by anyone. He cheats everyone. He knows how to get away. That is not buddhi. That is a common way that some of the Indian languages they say he is very buddhiman, he is very intelligent to outwit others. That is not buddhi. According to Sri Krishna, he is definitely not a buddhiman. So the buddhi with which he can cast off the bondage, he will not incur sin. He will break through the bonds of karma. So the principles of self-knowledge, which the principle of the self, which was described from Chap, verse 11 to 30, that was just the theory. Arjuna got convinced, but was not fully convinced. Because philosophy and yoga, that is jnana in the sense, knowledge of a thing and how to practice it are different things. Yoga is the sort of technology, whereas the other philosophy is like a science. Science is to be employed, converted into technology. How to do it? Just by saying, say the truth. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. That's not going to help the child. He will ask the teacher, ask the parents, teach me how to do it. Just don't give me ideas which are of no use in my life. If you give me ideas, teach me how to implement those ideas in life. That is what Sri Krishna is doing here. He gives him the principles of knowledge, that is Sankhya, which is the system of thought, which teaches us about the eternal principles of life from 11 to 30. And from 30 to 37, again you will find him giving some secular advice, telling him if you don't fight, people will laugh at you, everybody will become infamous as a person who has run a coward, and all those things he tells. That is just to convince him from the secular point of view. And then again 37 is giving him the explanation or the advice how to practice the principles which he taught from 11 to 30. So now 40, 41 and also 45 to 53, there are so many verses which teaches how to practice Sankhya principles. Sankhya are principles. Kapila Muni, he gave these principles of Sankhya, which is a very wise philosophy which led to yoga, where Patanjali took up the principles of Sankhya and said that this is how you should control your mind, this is how you should develop your buddhi. So, the different conceptions of knowledge, the different conceptions of Sankhya, which have been listed by Sri Krishna, and through verses 11 to 30, we find that he is giving the whole explanation how it becomes an applied science. The pure principles of science are of no use unless somebody converts it into technology which can be used into useful products which can help us in our day-to-day life. So jnana and yoga, the Sankhya and yoga, that is what Sankhya means in this case jnana. So we cannot just inquire into the truth of Atman, though it may be very nice to know what this idea of Brahman, Atman, this philosophy. Many people are very fond of listening to YouTube videos on this philosophy about the Atman. But what of it? How is it relevant to my life? Tomorrow I have to go and work. On a holiday, it may be very interesting to listen, as we listen to any philosophy. As they say, it's a coffee table philosophy. Have some coffee and nicely listen to these talks. But then when you come into the actual field of life, if we do not know the things that we heard on a weekend, how to practice it for the next 5 days. On weekdays, I have a different struggle. I might have heard some nice talks, but then when it comes to actual practice of those principles, the technology is not known. I know the theories, but the technology is not known how those principles can be practiced in our day-to-day life. That is why Sri Krishna in these verses, the conclusions of Sankhya, which you heard from me, if you do not practice that through different yogas, and each chapter of Gita is a yoga. So here it is Sankhya Yoga. Next we will have other yogas, Karma Yoga. So Sri Krishna is preparing the background. He is not just giving him some ideas and say, now you deal with these ideas yourself. That will not be good. You have to show the practical implications of what he says, all my advice given to Arjuna would be a sheer waste if I don't pinpoint or don't show him the technique of yoga, the Karma Yoga, that it's very good to understand the principles. It's better if all the conclusions will prove to be waste if we do not, if Sri Krishna does not teach Arjuna the technique of how to practice those principles in life. So that's why he says, he gives in verse number 40, which is very important, Neha vikramanashosti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Now he knows, like most of us, Arjuna is also very restless. He wants instant solution to the life's problems. And he does not have the patience. And you remember, he will also ask that suppose I start this, any development in any life, in any sport also, it requires hours and hours of practice. Only those who are prepared to patiently practice, even to practice to play sitar or a guitar or any instrument, so many times you will fail, there will be wrong notes, and then you will make errors, and if you persist, then only you will gain something. So Sri Krishna is aware that Arjuna is a man in a hurry. He wants immediate result, and there is no immediate result in spiritual life. You have to patiently work for it. But he knows that Arjuna now says, oh my God, all these things, especially after 18 chapters, he might be thinking, if I have to practice all this, it will take a lifetime or maybe several lifetimes. And if I don't achieve it, everything will be waste. So to prevent that idea from even coming in the mind of Sri Arjuna, Sri Krishna is telling him, see, whatever I am teaching you, whatever technique that you will follow, it is not like, it's like a game, you do everything right, and at the last moment you make one mistake and everything is lost. That is how our worldly experience teaches us. You do everything perfectly, and whatever you have gained, maybe you lose everything in one stroke. So, the spiritual life, all the spiritual practices that we don't reach the goal, and will everything that we have done be wasted? So to prevent that thought from coming to Arjuna's mind, Sri Krishna is very cleverly in the verse 40, he says, Na iha abhikrama nasha asti. There is no loss of effort. Now iha means, abhikrama nasha means, you have started with a certain thing, and you have not reached the goal. Maybe you have done 25% of the journey you have covered. But that's not going to go waste. You will continue from where you left. That's the idea. You see, when people earn money, earn property, earn wealth, when they grow old, there is a fear that what will happen to all those things. Obviously, you can't carry it to the next life. You can't say that I am a millionaire, may I be born and start my life with those millions which I have earned. No, everything goes waste. So for a person who is attached to this world, who thinks, he gets panicky when the fear of death or fear of dying comes to him. Because he sees, with all effort, I have to leave everything behind. So similar fear, Sri Krishna anticipates that Arjuna will have. Oh, I have practiced spirituality, or I have practiced exactly what you said, all my life, and suddenly before I reach the culmination of my spiritual effort, if I die, then will I lose everything as I lose my property, my money and all those things? That is a question, very serious question he is asking, anticipating. But he says, no, it is not na iha in this spiritual karma yoga or the yoga that you are following. There is no such thing as abhikrama nasha. Abhikrama nasha means loss of effort. Pratyavaya, no production of contrary results. Pratyavaya na vidyate. Swalpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. But the advantage of this is, you will not only lose whatever you have achieved, it is like bank balance, it will be carried to your next life. Maybe our physical bank balances, physical things that we have accumulated will not be carried over, everything will be left behind, but he says here there is no pratyavaya, there is no loss of effort or contrary result. It will be taken over, carried over. Maybe in the next birth, all these things that you have done will not be lost as you lose your money and all the worldly things. The gross things will be left behind, including the body. But your soul carries on. That is what his idea is. But even in this life, that is about afterlife. It's not that this yoga, the efforts of yoga you will be reaping in the next life. In this life also, if you have practiced it properly, swalpa means swalpam appi asya dharmasya, whatever this yoga that I am teaching you, even if you practice a little of it in this life, it will at least protect you from great fear. Because Arjuna was very fearful, such a powerful warrior, very confident of victory, and he has come here and he is like a fearful child, he is saying that I can't fight this battle. So this technique which Sri Krishna is teaching will help you, protect you from fear even in this life. You don't have to wait till you die. There is practice of even a little of this dharma. So it is something like, here Sri Krishna knows that of all the emotions, the greatest emotion is fear of death. There are so many fears, fears of losing money, fears of losing name, fame, criticism. There are so many fears. Every day we encounter these fears. But the greatest was fear of death. And the knowledge of Sankhya or the Atman will remove this fear, even if you practice it a little bit. So Patanjali says, this abhinivesha, this clinging to life is the greatest fear from which all smaller fears are born. We try to solve our small fears. Some people are afraid of the dark, some people are afraid of ghosts. There are very small little fears which trouble us, trouble every human being. But if you ask and if you see in the long run, the greatest fear is fear of death. No person can say that he has no fear of death. He may say it now when he is healthy, but when he grows old, some unexplainable fear possesses him that he is going to die. That's not just the fear of losing the body, but it's the fear of uncertainty. What will happen? That 14-year-old Nachiketa, when he went to Yama, the god of death himself, his main question was, what happens after death? That means fear of death is something which is very serious, or at least will be very serious in our life, though at this time, as it happened in the case of Arjuna. It's not that he was a weak, he was a very strong person, he had defeated single-handedly the entire Kaurava army. But why did that fear of death come all of a sudden? Fear of not only his own death, but death of his guru, the death of his teacher, Bhishma and other people. He suddenly saw that this idea of death is becoming unbearable. So the whole first chapter, Sri Krishna had to remove that fear of death. Now he is trying to consolidate, and he says, if you want peace, if you want success in life, if you want all your efforts not to go in waste, then follow this path of Karma Yoga. And the next verse is one of the most central verses of this second chapter that will lead to the sixth chapter. Why the whole Indian tradition is based and founded on the idea of meditation. Why do we need meditation? Why do we need controlling our mind? Because Sri Krishna's diagnosis is the problem is not outside, the problem is in our own minds. So he says, this is a beautiful verse. He says, we all talk of practicality. We say, oh, this person is very practical, very intelligent. Vyavasayatmika buddhi. Vyavasayatmika means, here it means one-pointed. But why one-pointed? Why can't we multitask? Why can't we do many things at a time? Just because it makes us restless, and the more restless we are, the more fearful we are, the more away from certainty we are. Uncertainty is because there are too many thoughts in our mind. We are perfectly okay, but the uncertainty creates panic in our mind. What if I lose the job? What if my health breaks down? Nothing has happened. Job is still there. The health is fine. But then these different thoughts, these many thoughts that come without our control because of wrong thinking, wrong habits, they just prop up. And suddenly you become anxious over something which is not going to happen. It may not happen. But you think, oh, what if I lose the job? Now the situation is very bad. What will happen if I lose my health? What will happen if the marriage fails? What will happen if this thing doesn't happen, that thing doesn't happen? So hundreds of anxieties lead, unnecessary anxieties before they have even happened, gives rise to misery. And what is the cause? Sri Krishna says in 45th verse, which is very important, because he says your problems are because you are thinking too much. You are thinking of the consequences of war. Who will win, who will die? Why do you bother? Just fight. That is your duty. Do your swadharma and do it as karma yoga, then there will be no anxiety. Before even the battle has started, you are thinking of situations which may not happen. So why bring uncertainty in a certain life? Our problem is every day we sit and allow our mind creates more and more uncertainty. That's why there's an English proverb, idle mind is a devil's workshop. Because when we are idle, all these thoughts come. If you are busy with karma yoga, you are always busy with something, focused on your job, you don't get time to think useless and silly thoughts. Now the war has not begun, he is just watching and all these thoughts are coming. So he says that is why you are so disturbed now. You are not in your right frame of mind. He says, to the Vyavasayatmika buddhi means one-pointed, buddhi, determination, that is wisdom, single. The reason why we meditate is the chain of thoughts, if we repeat, the mind is one-pointed, and one-pointed mind alone is happy. The only time we are happy in this life is when our mind is one-pointed. Whether it is doing some work, when we are totally focused on the work, then we don't think about silly, useless thoughts. That immediately gives us happiness. So he says, if your mind is one-pointed and has one decision, is able to focus on one thing, but if your mind is many branching, bahushakhaha, if it is full of branches, full of wild imaginations, thinking of what that person spoke about me, then it goes to some other past event, then some other future worry, future anxiety, and our mind is full of thoughts which we cannot control. So many branching and endless thoughts are the decisions of a person whose mind is infirm. It's a weak mind. It's a mind which is not concentrated, which cannot sit quietly for 5 minutes. You can see some people, even after retirement, you just ask them, just sit quietly and read a book. They can't do it because all their lives, their minds have been so restless. They want to do some activity. Now they are weak, they cannot. Nobody wants to give them company. They'll say, no, let us play. The children say, no, I am not bothered. You could see the old age home, it's so difficult to keep them quiet because they have not learnt the technique of keeping this to be firm in mind, to make one decision and not allow the mind to branch. The mind is branching in several places. They would like to do the things they did as youth, but now in this old age they are weak. None of the young people want to spend time with them, and then you find in some of these care homes that to keep them occupied is proving to be so difficult. How to keep them engaged? They want to be engaged, otherwise they become restless. So Sri Krishna says, if you were one-pointed, you would not need, because you would enjoy your own self. Vyavasayatmika buddhi. If that Vyavasayatmika buddhi was there, in old age you will be very happy with the less noise and less confusion around you. You are living your own life, you are happy, meditating on your own self or meditating on the eternal reality of life. That is spirituality. So that's why he says in 41, verse number 41, to the firm in mind, O joy of the Kurus, there is this one decision. Their minds are one-pointed and they are happy. Either reading a book, meditating, they are happy with themselves. They are not feeling lonely because they like to be alone. But the problem with modern minds is they don't like to be alone. They want company, which they don't get. Because their restless mind needs company. They want socializing, they want to mix. And maybe because of old age or maybe because their company is not fun for the younger people, they avoid. And then they complain that nobody seems to be bothered about us. But that problem, according to Krishna, would not come if you are firm in mind, if you are happy with, if you have developed that Vyavasayatmika buddhi and the many branches of the mind which is typical of young people, that will lead to problems later on. So all these hankerings, this change in this, not satisfied with one thing, oh I want some change, that's why people go to places of tourism. The moment they go there, they feel, oh this is okay, now let us go somewhere else. So all these endeavors which does not enable you to settle down your mind, make it one-pointed. Firmness is very important. Faith in the one reality and firmness in holding on to that. So it is helpful both for our secular and spiritual life. Whenever the mind is focused, you not only get spiritual, the power of meditation or the spiritual wealth, but also it helps you in your secular work. You do a thing perfectly. Even a branched mind, a disturbed mind is bad for your secular work. You won't even be able to study properly or do the job that you are supposed to do properly. So everything becomes possible. The mind trained in concentration can attain perfection in both secular and spiritual life. That's why he is reminding Arjuna, see, you were one of the only students of Dronacharya. All others had diversified minds which were disturbed. When you are asked to shoot, when Dronacharya asked you, what do you see in front of you? He had such powers of concentration. He was not just great because he was strong. He was fully concentrated. In archery, you need concentration. So when Dronacharya asked the young Arjuna, what do you see? He says, I see the eye of the bird. He was supposed to hit the eye of the bird. He could not see anything else. All others said, we see fruits, we see trees, their minds were branched. So he says, your success was due to concentration. He implies by these words that one-pointed mind, you get it back, and then you will see you will get peace. All your restlessness is because you have lost your one-pointedness. So we will continue. I think we are running short of time. If there are some questions, you can ask. based on what we discussed today.
So just about the Vishada Yoga, the chapter 1. So you can't really practice that. You can practice
No. It's not to be practiced, but it comes in our lives. Vishada means, actually there are many facets of Vishada. It was not just fear. It's not that Arjuna was fraught with fear. Vishada means it came out of a strange kind of depression. You may say Vishada can be depression because there is this uncertainty in our life. When you ask a depressed person, why are you depressed? He will just not be able to answer. So there are many causes. It's not just one cause that leads to depression. There's a lot of confusion in his mind. That is why he had Vishada. So now how it becomes yoga? Because when you are in that state, you want to get out of that state. If everything is going on fine, then you don't train yourself. But when you know that these things can come to me, and you find you want to become strong. Till now, Arjuna was never depressed because he was always strong. Every time he fought a battle, he would win. He was a very strong person. It's not that he was like a weak person who obviously will get depressed, but even a strong person, he needs this kind of setback in life to make himself stronger. He boasted that I can defeat this whole Kaurava army single-handed. He had done it when there was an encounter when they were in the forest. They disguise, he led that army and he defeated all of them. So he knew he had the strength. But that Vishada was required for him to turn to spiritual life. It's not just weakness or fear that was Sri Krishna had to address. Sri Krishna knew it's just a temporary fear that has come, a temporary depression, it can be removed. So in our life also it becomes a yoga, because when you see people don't listen to these spiritual truths, they think what's the use, what's the spiritual benefit of this Gita and all this spiritual advice. But when you really, and because when you are strong, when you think everything is going your way, you are supremely confident, then Vishada does not become a yoga. But when that Vishada comes even to a strong person, he thinks, oh, in spite of all my strength and all my confidence in myself, how come I became so weak? Then he seeks a solution from Krishna. And then Krishna comes and says, see, this Vishada is very common because you did not have these qualities. So all the other 17 chapters, they are meant so that this Vishada does not come back in his life. It may come, but he knows the solution. But he never expected that this kind of, so Vishada becomes a yoga to reach higher levels of truth. Starting with second, third, fourth, all the chapters, does not come in one chapter. Arjuna has to be told again and again, he asks questions, he has his own doubts. Third chapter, fourth chapter, then teaches how Bhakti Yoga can be practiced. So he covers every facet of life, all the paths which will ultimately lead to yoga, the true yoga, that is the goal of life. So that in that sense, Vishada is a yoga. It's not that you have to practice Vishada. You don't deliberately become depressed to get yoga. If you are healthy and if you are convinced that this is the truth, then we don't have to wait.
That maybe is based on the previous lives and.
Yeah, obviously it is previous life. Anything that happens in our life is because of our past karma. So in spite of all our good efforts, when things go bad with us, the only way you can explain is the effect of our previous life's karma. That is why it is such a powerful idea. Karma, the idea of karma is powerful because it is based on a scientific principle of cause and effect. You can't have an effect without a cause. So if you don't see the cause in this birth, you see it in the previous life. So somewhere there has to be a cause, isn't it? Why things go wrong with good people? You can't explain. He said, I have never done anything bad. Why things are happening, bad things are happening in my life. And the people who are doing evil things are getting away with the mischief that they do. So you need to explain that. So that's where this karma theory comes. And also he just does not give the theory of cause and effect. He tells how to go beyond that. By doing karma yoga, you will not add further karma in your life. You will not incur any sin. Till now, because you did not do karma yoga, a lot of sins you have accumulated, and that was the result. That's the result why you suffered so much in life. But now you have taken a decision. Do your work as karma yoga, and henceforth, even a little of this religion will protect you from sins, absolve you from sins. That's the idea. Anything? John? One of the books you wanted was Karma Yoga, isn't it? Or Raj Yoga? Raj Yoga. Okay. That is dealt with in the 6th chapter of Gita. It's based, Raj Yoga, it's known as Dhyana Yoga. I'll send it when I go back. You'll get it in a few days. What was?
So karma yoga should be done by being detached from the...
Yes, we have just started. Actually, the first 2 verses only we read. Then there's a whole many verses, and also Karma Yoga will come in the 3rd chapter and 4th chapter. So, and a little bit in 5th also. But 6th chapter is about meditation. So he first gives a list of things which qualify work to be done in such a way that it becomes Karma Yoga. So it's part of the whole thing.
Sometimes we do the wrong things, mistakes. Still we know that it was a mistake and the wrong things. What we have to do, what we have
Correct.
to need to do it.
Yeah, the question is, because this is online also, I'll just repeat the question what you said. So the question asked was, when sometimes we do certain wrong things, and then later when we realize that we should not have done it, what is the solution? Not to do it again, or maybe what is the remedial measure. So that is how trial and error in spiritual life works, because we don't have that capacity. As if you had heard the talk in the beginning, I spoke of 2 faculties of the mind. One was buddhi and another was the reactive mind. We make mistakes because our buddhi or the choice making capacity is not developed. So we make mistakes because our mind has not been trained. As you say in Gayatri Mantra, which we say in Hindus, the main purpose is at the age of 6, between 6 and 8, every boy and girl, even girl, should be given that, so that they pray to the light which is within, that let me not make mistakes, let me not take wrong decisions in my life. To the extent it is possible. It's not possible because many times we have not developed that capacity to understand what is good, what is bad. We don't make mistakes. Very often we don't make mistakes deliberately. By mistake it happens, we are ignorant. And then we realize, oh, this is the wrong thing which I did, I should not have done, and then we repent. But the very fact that practicing not only Gayatri Mantra, any prayer which prays to the Lord to give you light. Even in the Bible it is said, let there be light. Light means what light? The light of wisdom. So the Lord is light, He is of the nature of light, He never makes mistakes. So if we have that light, with the help of that light, we will also not make mistakes. So that is one way. But if you have already done, say for example, because of ignorance, you have to just march forward. You should not think of the past, because that is not going to solve it. It is like crying over spilt milk. If you had forgotten to switch off the gas, the milk would boil and spill. Once it is spilled, you can't put the milk back. It is gone. So similarly, what has happened, you have to just ignore. Ignore in the sense, be firm in your mind that I will not going to repeat again the same mistake. That is one way. Not to repeat the mistake which I made inadvertently. Now my mind is wise. I will not repeat the same mistake. That is one way. And second and the better way is through prayers for buddhi, so that you don't make such mistakes or some other mistakes in the future also. You got my point? So that is development of the higher faculty of the mind, buddhi, which comes through meditation. Meditation helps you to sharpen the buddhi. We will come to that, but this is the brief answer. Yes. Shall we conclude? Or any question? We have just 2 minutes. Yeah. So we'll conclude now. Okay? Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.